Just a note before we get started, I will be away on Wednesday. Phyllis Gardner will lead, and I'll be back a week from today. So wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next Saturday. This morning, my comments are entitled Inviting Mara to Tea. You may remember the legend of Mara. The story is that on the night or evening of the Buddha's enlightenment, he was sitting under the Bodhi tree and he was just ready to become enlightened. And Mara, this sort of spirit, or he's been characterized different ways in Buddhist literature, arrives and tries to tempt him away from it and says, he offers him sensual desire, he brings his daughters, there's variations on the stories. He tries to confuse him. He does all these things to try to prevent his enlightenment. And the legend goes that the Buddha reached down and touched the earth, and at that moment, Mara disappeared, and the Buddha becomes enlightened. So, and Buddhist teachings and Buddhist mythology, Mara is portrayed as the symbol of hindrance, of temptation, and inner struggle, and really is a metaphor for that. He tried to, as I said, stop the Buddha from achieving enlightenment, and he represents then and symbolically the forces that pull us away from clarity, from wisdom and peace. And I really think it's a very powerful teaching in this notion of inviting Mara to tea. It suggests that rather than resisting or suppressing or fleeing from our challenges and our inner demons, it points to this practice of inviting Mara to tea with acceptance, with compassion, as the Buddha did. He didn't attempt to drive him away. He just stayed focused, stayed concentrated, touched the earth, and prevailed over Mara. So in our daily lives, Mara is a broad metaphor that manifests in countless ways. Self-doubt, we can talk about Mara's self-doubt as fear, anger, anxiety, jealousy, clinging, any of the distractions that keep us from being present, any of the distractions that take us out of the present moment would be considered a manifestation of the mythical Mara. And they're part. These experiences, of course, as they were for the Buddha, part of being human. They may feel at times consuming. They certainly feel unwelcome. But our path asks us not to fear them, not to avoid them. Because as the myth implies, resistance to Mara only amplifies its hold on us. Fighting our inner struggles, pushing them away, resisting them, trying to suppress them, whatever, it leads to frustration, it leads to denial, it leads to greater suffering. And the practice of inviting Mara to tea really shifts this dynamic. Instead of seeing that Mara as the enemy to battle, we treat Mara as a guest to be understood, an approach that is rooted in our mindfulness. Because we observe our thoughts, we observe our emotions, we observe our sensations without judgment. We observe them with compassion, the willingness to meet even our darkest parts with kindness. So all that said, what exactly does it mean when I say invite Mara to tea? Well, it means meeting our difficulties with openness and curiosity, with acceptance rather than resistance. When we feel anger, our instinct may be to push it away or lash out. But if we pause, we create a space to just sit and be with that anger, to bring curiosity to it, to inquire into its nature, to see it for what it truly is, simply a temporary mental state, not who we are. Doesn't define us. It's not an inherent part of who we are. And just as the Buddha faced Mara and his armies with equanimity, we meet our own inner demons with the same unwavering presence. When anger, craving, or other states arise, we mentally bow to them and say, I see you, Mara, come on in, let's have some tea. By which I mean we recognize these states as temporary, impermanent visitors in the mind, not as manifestations of a fixed, permanent self. And this approach, of course, aligns with principles like non-attachment, non-aversion, wisdom. By allowing negative thoughts and feelings to come and go without reactivity, we loosen their hold on them. When we try to push them away, when we get in a wrestling match with them, we only perpetuate them. And when we welcome them, we see their impermanence, we see the emptiness of their impermanence, how they are not intrinsic to who we are. They are just fleeting, temporary states. And these difficult mind states can actually become teachers when we meet them with curiosity and care. What is this anger trying to show me? What is this loneliness trying to tell me? What is this fear pointing me towards? What unmet needs might be underneath these states of anger, loneliness, and fear? What am I trying to respond to here? And we see that by investigating them, we take some of the power out of them. Now, this doesn't mean we indulge these negative emotions or we allow them to take over, but it's about acknowledging them without judging them, without the second arrow, without blaming ourselves. When we invite Mara to tea, we say, I see you, you are here, let's sit together, let me investigate you, let me notice you, let me pause and notice you. The simple act of recognizing these feeling states diffuses the power of our struggles and transforms them from seemingly overwhelming forces into real opportunities for insight and growth. So what are the practices? Well, familiar ones. We feel it arise, we notice it, we pause, we take a few breaths. We watch this difficult emotion or thought arising, which creates a moment of mindfulness, which helps us step out of these automatic hair trigger reactions. And then we acknowledge their presence. We mentally note what we experience. We might say, oh, fear is arising, anger's here. Let me look into this. Let me bring some curiosity to it. Naming the experience helps us recognize and get a little separation from it without becoming entangled in it. And then we welcome the experience with self-compassion. So we imagine we meet these experiences as we might greet an old friend. Instead of pushing them away, why are you here? What do you need? What are you trying to tell me? We really come at it as an observer. We shift our relationship from the experience of one of resistance, of pushing it away, to one of curiosity and self-care. We look deeply into the nature of this emotion or this experience. Is it tied to a particular story? Is it tied to a particular belief? Does it show up as a physical sensation in the body? We begin to see its impermanence, and we begin to see the inherent lack of power, the lack of inherent power that it has over us. And then we just let it go. We let it go because we know it's going to pass away. And once we acknowledged it, we find that it naturally dissolves. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. If it sticks around for a while, okay. It's not trying to force it away, but cultivating an understanding of it, cultivating a relationship of peace to it. Everything, the Buddha said, all experience, all conditioned things are impermanent. When we sit with our struggles and observe them mindfully, we see their transient nature. When we resist them, they linger, they hang around, they stick around. When we label them and identify with them and hold on to them, they just stick around, they stick to us like Velcro. In the moment, fear, anger, doubt, all these emotions may feel overwhelming. But if we have that spacious perspective that they're temporary, that they're not permanent fixtures of our being, they will arise, they will linger a bit, and then they will pass away. And when we engage with this practice, we align ourselves with the truth of our existence. We stop clinging to the idea that there's something defective in us if we're not completely free of difficulties. We don't label our difficulties as failings or faults or weaknesses. We stop fearing these moments of struggle. We cultivate equanimity about them. With a balanced state of mind, we meet them with both joy and sorrow. We meet them with grace. We're not just extending compassion to ourselves in these struggles, but to others as well. But it is important to extend self-compassion, to acknowledge our difficulties without judgment. Our default is to judge them, to berate ourselves. But as I said on Wednesday, we treat them, these experiences, with the same care we would offer a dear friend, with compassion. We become more understanding of our struggles. And we see that everyone has their own versions of Mara to contend with. The shared humanity fosters empathy and connection. Inviting Mara to tea is a simple yet profound teaching that reminds us of the power of our practice, things like mindfulness, acceptance, and compassion. And it invites us to transform our relationship with our inner struggles, seeing them not as enemies, but as just part of the human experience. But we can turn them into opportunities for growth and understanding. By learning to sit with Mara, we say, "You are welcome here." And this leads us ever closer to the wisdom that the Buddha promised. Because true freedom is not the absence of difficulty. If we believe that, we're deluding ourselves. Instead, it is the ability to meet these challenges, these difficulties, with an open heart and a steady mind. So the next time Mara knocks on our door, we don't slam the door. We set the table, we boil the water, we invite Mara to tea, because who knows what we might learn from our conversation with Mara when we invite him in for tea. So that's some thoughts this morning on managing the Mara in our lives.